Hi everyone, so today I want to give you a couple of tips on conditioning and treatment of roses. Now the roses that I have here, you'll see the colour a little bit better when I unpack them. It's a beautiful purple, kind of a deep mauve shade, and the variety is called Nightingale. It's worth writing that down. So roses, every shade and every colour rose has an actual name. So rather than going onto your supplier and requesting a purple rose, a lilac rose, a mauve rose, if you order it by its actual name, its variety, you know then that that's the colour that you're going to get. Here at the school, we often use Memory Lane quite a lot, which is a little bit paler shade of lilac, paler shade of mauve than the Nightingale. So with all roses, the first thing that you do is you remove the plastic from the wrapping. So this prevents, or this allows the ethylene gas to escape. So all flowers, not just roses, they release a gas called ethylene gas. Ethylene gas is a ripening or maturing gas, so basically it matures the flowers and makes them grow old, which we don't want happening. So by releasing the plastic, from around your flowers, it allows the ethylene gas to escape. The next thing to do with your flowers is to remove any tie string or elastic band that's around the end of the bunch. That then stops any resistance to water getting up the stem, especially if it's wrapped quite tight. The next thing I would advise you to invest in is a stem stripper. We have these for sale at the school. They're very reasonably priced and basically they're like another hand. So this is for removing our foliage and our thorns on our roses. So you take up each rose individually, you grip the stem stripper in your hand and basically you just run it down the stem, just catching a thorn there, and what it does is it removes the point of the thorn and removes any foliage. So normally we say remove the foliage below the water line, do you know that way? So you don't want any leaves down inside the water, because what that will do is it'll cause bacteria to grow, it'll pollute the water, your water will be dirty, will go discoloured, and then your roses are going to go off, or whatever flowers you happen to use. Now the stem stripper, if there's a leaf there that doesn't miss, you can just pull that off with your fingers. But the advantage of the stem stripper is that removes the tips of the thorn, where most other contraptions, they actually remove the thorn completely, which leaves an open wound on the stem, and the flower then is inclined to get bacteria or get infected on the stem. Where with the stem stripper you can find the thorn is still there, but the actual nip, the little kind of prick at the top of the thorn, is actually gone. So your next thing then I recommend is to place all your roses approximately the same height. So roses are sold either in multiples of 10s or multiples of 20s. Now these roses just got delivered today, so they came direct from Holland, so as you can see they're completely dehydrated. So people will say give your flowers at least 4 hours drink in water before you use them. But if they've come in direct from Holland, I recommend give them between 8 and 12 hours. The longer the better, give them a good hydration. Now what I like to do is, because they're dehydrated, the stem's a little bit soft, okay, I like to support it with a sheet of paper. Every florist is different, every florist has their own way of conditioning and treating the roses. It doesn't mean they're right or that I'm wrong. I know I'm right. So using a sheet of brown paper, what you're going to do is wrap it firmly, supporting your flower heads around your roses, and then secure it with a little piece of sellotape. Now this will do two jobs. This will support the flower while it's upright in your vase of water, while it's having the first drink, and it will prevent the rose heads from kind of drooping over. We call that breaking its neck. But also it'll delay the roses from blowing open. So blowing open is, when a rose is kind of that little bit more mature, or that's nice, if the room is nice and warm, the flower then will start to blow open, which is fantastic for the customer to look at, or it's beautiful in an actual wedding bouquet. But from a florist's point of view, it just means that the flower is ripening more. So to hold it back is you can keep the paper on for an extra day or two. But if you want them to blow, remove the paper 1 hour after they've had a drink. Now the next thing to get organised is your vase or your bucket of water that you're going to use. So what you need is your vase or your bucket needs to be sterilised. Now we have a separate tutorial on our blog, or it's also on our YouTube channel, how to preparing your buckets and vases for your flower delivery. So do recommend to go over and watch that, because I explain about bleaching them and sterilising them. What I like to add is a sachet of flower food to the water that our flowers are going to drink. And personally, I actually like to add the flower food before I top it up with water, and that way it gets dissolved. But just for the tutorial, I'm adding in the flower food now, a little bit of a swish around just to make sure that it's well mixed and it's well dissolved. Now, also with roses, you will find sometimes they get an airlock in the stem. You'll hear people talking about air bubbles or airlocks. There's two flowers that are inclined to get the air bubble, roses and gerbera or germani, which is just a mini gerbera. And what happens with them flowers is when they drink water, it goes so far up the stem, it meets the airlock or the air bubble, the water can't get past the airlock, the flower is standing up in the vase on its own, and what's inclined to happen is the head might go over, breaking its neck as we call it. So again, that's another reason why I like to support them whilst they're having their first drink. But to get rid of the airlock, now the old-fashioned way was to use boiling water. It still works, nothing wrong with it, and that's fine. But there is a chemical that you can get now, and the two main companies out there, Smithers Oasis and Chrysal, both have their own version of it. Here in Ireland we call it Quick Dip, but I know in America they call it Magic Dip. So have a look for it in your suppliers. It's for getting rid of airlocks and stems, but it's also a hydrator. So if the likes of peonies, hydrangeas, woody stemmed flowers, viburnum, any flower like that you know is kind of difficult to hydrate, I definitely recommend using the quick dip. But also flowers that you want to get rid of airlocks too, so like roses or germanis, we definitely recommend using it as well. So normally here at the school we use a paper disposable cup, and I put about 3 centimetres of the quick dip in the end of your container. Now that's why I like to use the cup rather than a bucket or a vase, because to get 3 centimetres into a large bucket you will have used up half the bottle, and it is quite expensive and it's not reusable. Yes, I can place other bunches of flowers in this container here today, but once it's gone discoloured and it's dirty, you basically have to throw it out. So what you then do is you remove 1 inch off the end of your stems on a 45-degree angle. If you cut straight across on a flower, you make a certain size hole. But if you cut on a 45-degree angle, you do cut a larger hole. So that's why we say a 45-degree angle. So cut that off all your flowers, as I said, at least 1 inch. And by cutting on an angle, you can often see there, your ends are different lengths. That's why we need the 3 centimetres in the end of your container. So you're now going to place the stems down into the quick dip for literally 1 second and back out again. It's like Viagra for flowers, it makes them stand up straight. You then place it down into your clean, cold water that has your flower food in it. Obviously the fresher the water the better, because there's more oxygen levels in the water. So you leave that for at least an hour and then you can remove the paper. The minimum you leave them in the water before you start working on them is 4 hours. But if you've got delivery straight from Holland, I would recommend between 8 and 12 hours, at least overnight if possible. Hopefully you picked up a couple of little tips there. But listen, if you have any questions or you have any comments, I'd love to hear back from you. Just place your comments in the comment box below there. If you're watching on YouTube, I'd love if you gave us the thumbs up. And if you're watching on Instagram or Facebook, I'd really appreciate if you shared our video. So again, thank you for joining. My name is Janette and I'm from Case Flower School.